All right, well, welcome back, everyone. Zach here, back in the city, and we're going to dive into chapters 3 and 4 of A Process Relational Philosophy by Robert Mesley. But before you dive into these chapters, I'd like you to step back for just a minute and ask what sounds like a simple question. So what is it like to be you? Not just what you think about yourself, but what it feels like to be you, to be an experiencing person moving through the world. So this question is going to be your most powerful tool as we explore Alfred North Whitehead's philosophy throughout this introductory text by Mesley. So because in process thought, your lived experience isn't a minor detail. It's the entire starting point, right? It's the entire starting point. So it's how we get our bearings in a universe that is far more alive than most of us were ever taught to imagine. So to understand why this is such a radical idea that Whitehead and Mesley are defending, let's start by unpacking a picture you may not even know you carry. The old idea that there are two kinds of things, bodies and minds. This idea goes all the way back to René Descartes, who you have studied, and Descartes argued that the mind is immaterial and rational, while the body is physical and mechanical. In that view, the mind is like a ghost inhabiting a machine. But if you reflect honestly on your life, if I reflect honestly on my life, we can see how little sense this actually makes, right? So we feel hunger, we feel pain, we feel the satisfaction of a good meal, and these aren't messages sent to an isolated mind. They are direct experiences of a living body. This is a big point for Whitehead and Mesley. So Whitehead sees this split as one of our culture's deepest mistakes. He insists that experience doesn't float above the body. It arises from the body. So experience doesn't float above the body, it arises from the body. Our rational thinking is just the thin crust on top of a vast ocean of feeling. As he puts it, quote, "It is said that men are rational. This is palpably false. They are only intermittently rational, merely liable to rationality." So end quote there. So this is one of the most important shifts process philosophy asks us to make. Instead of seeing ourselves as supernatural beings stuck in a material world, you can start to recognize that we are simply examples of how nature itself works. Earlier thinkers like Plato and many Christian theologians, which we've studied again in the course, believe that our souls belong to a higher eternal realm separate from the changing, messy material world. Even modern science, like Isaac Newton and again René Descartes imagined it, pictured nature as a giant machine with no experience at all. So with humans as only the exceptions, right? Humans as only the exceptions. Now, Whitehead completely flips this story around. He proposes that we are fully natural creatures and that our experience is part of the same reality that forms everything else. This means that when we study ourselves, we learn something about the world. And when we study the world, we learn something about ourselves. As he put it, other sections of the universe should be interpreted in light of what we know from our own embodiment. This is why it matters so much to ask whether you live in your body like a captain in a ship steering it around, or whether your body itself is the very site of your experience. If you touch something warm, feel a headache, or notice the tension of something you're afraid of a fear, that is your body experiencing. You don't just get a report about it. The mind isn't a separate observer perched somewhere outside the skull. It's actually the organizing center of all this bodily flow. This has real consequences. So because when we split the soul off as something supernatural and separate it, it becomes much easier to dismiss bodily suffering. If the real you is just an immaterial soul, why care so much about hunger or pain or pleasure? Whitehead's approach insists that our embodiment is our life. So your embodiment is your life. So now we arrive at the imaginative leap that these chapters will invite us to take. If experience arises from the body, how far down does it go? Most of us accept that animals have experience, dogs feel fear and affection, chimpanzees, they can solve problems. Dolphins like to play. But what about insects? What about single-celled organisms? What about electrons? Whitehead's proposal is radical, but surprisingly coherent. That experience, understood in a broad sense as feeling or responsiveness, is present at every single level of reality. That doesn't mean that amoebas are conscious in a way that we are, but that feeling is a basic feature of existence itself. His language here stretches ordinary words. When he talks about energy, he means quantitative emotional intensity. When he speaks of forms of energy, he means forms of feeling. He wants us to imagine that the physical world is not made of dead particles, but of tiny drops of experience relating to each other, right? So this is the metaphysical imaginative leap, again, that we've talked about, that Whitehead is asking us to do. He writes that consciousness itself flickers, and even when it shines most brightly, it illuminates only a small region. The simplicity of our clear, conscious awareness is no measure of the complexity of experience as a whole. If experience and value are woven throughout nature, we have obligations that don't end with our own species. Animals matter for their own sake. The earth itself is a field of becoming and feeling, not just a resource for us to exploit. Consider how different animal rights look if we see animals as centers of experience rather than as living machines. So Whitehead's vision invites a philosophy grounded in this world, a reverence for embodied life and interconnection. It also calls us to see ourselves as fully natural, without diminishing our worth or our dignity. So as you read the next chapters, remember this: you are an embodied self. Experience is not separate from your body. According to Whitehead, the universe may be a vast web of experiencing events, and consciousness is just a rare emergence, not the starting point of existence. Whitehead doesn't just want you to adopt a new theory. He wants you to feel this shift, right? To recognize that your experience is part of something much larger and more alive than any of us were ever taught. So take your time, read with curiosity. I very much look forward to your posts and your thoughts this week, and I will see you online. Everyone is doing great work. Keep it up. Have a great week.